Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome to a new episode of our new program that we are hosting here at the Islamic Institute of Toronto. Our guest is Sheikh Abdool Hamid. He is an imam and a khatib and a lecturer at the Islamic Institute of Toronto. And we have selected for you a very amazing topic. We selected to speak about the ahadith where they begin with the words, Ya Aisha, O Aisha. So these are always a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ speaks to his wife, and Shaykh Abdul Hamid decided to talk about these hadith and select a few of them from the 6 books and to get into in depth about the understanding of these hadith. Shaykh Abdul Hamid, what an interesting topic.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And when I had to come up with a topic for my thesis, actually my supervisor suggested that I look for a topic that focuses on a particular topic. And so I brainstormed a little bit. I actually looked originally at the ahadith in which the Prophet ﷺ says, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ,
Yeah.
by him in whose hands is my life.
Has that been done?
It has not been done, but that was too big a topic for me because I was limited based on the program that I was doing with the amount of words I could submit in the research. It could not exceed 30,000 words. And the ahadith in which the Prophet ﷺ says, by him in whose hands is my life, it's a lot of ahadith, a couple of hundreds of ahadith.
Yeah.
So I had to look for something that was much smaller. And I even thought about ahadith in which the Prophet ﷺ says, Ya Abu Bakr, Ya Umar. Even those turned out to be a lot. It would have been too much for my research. And in the end, I just settled for Ya Aisha. And the reason I settled for this is that Aisha is his wife, radiallahu anha. And I found it amazing that he would address her directly using this expression, O Aisha, out of compassion and love for her.
Yeah.
You know, addressing her by her name, which I believe, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, you know, the best address a person can ever have is to be addressed by his or her name, because your name identifies you.
Yeah.
It makes you unique among the whole group.
Yeah.
So I found it interesting and amazing that the Prophet ﷺ often would not just speak to her, but he would also call her by her name, Ya Aisha. And I believe that this is a term of endearment, and it reflects the strong and deep love that he had for her and the relationship, the excellent relationship he had with her.
So is there any hadith where he, for instance, he does Ya Hafsa or Ya Zainab, or have you looked into any of those?
Now, that's an interesting question. I haven't looked at that, at those ahadith from that perspective. Maybe there are, maybe there aren't, I don't know. But yes, subhanAllah, that is something we can also look at.
But the vast majority of hadith that we talk about, usually many of them start with Ya Aisha. There's a lot of those that are known to the people, you know. And I'm just honestly wondering why we know so many of those versus the other ones. Is it because maybe Aisha radiallahu anha, she lived a lot longer than the other prophets' wives, or?
Well, first of all, the statement Ya Aisha doesn't have to come at the very beginning of the hadith. Because most of the hadith that you will go through, you will find that often this statement comes like way in the middle of the hadith. So it doesn't have to be at the very beginning of the hadith, it can come somewhere else in the hadith. In terms of why Aisha more than the other wives, I believe it's primarily because she is the one who has narrated numerous ahadith. The other wives of the Prophet have not narrated a lot of ahadith at all.
Yeah.
And you know, Aisha is the one he had most interactions with. And she was the one who would always question him about things.
Yeah.
The other wives were much older. She, of course, was much younger. And as a younger person, she was very curious. And not just curious, but also a very assertive person. All right. And she wanted to know what's behind this and what's behind that. So she was not shy in asking questions to the Prophet ﷺ. The other wives were a little bit more shy per se, or reserved.
Yeah.
So they didn't really ask him as many questions as she did. And they themselves did not narrate much ahadith to begin with.
What did you think you were going to find before you started? I'm really interested in your thoughts before you actually looked at these hadith.
First of all, I thought I would have found a lot more ahadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Aisha. But I was surprised. I mean, when I gathered these ahadith, and I had to limit myself to the 6 books of hadith, the 2 Sahih and the 4 Sunan, because again, I was limited by the amount of words I could put in the research.
Yeah.
It turns out I got about 113 ahadith with repetition.
Okay.
So when I took out the repetitions and so on, it ended up being about 51 ahadith only. And
Perfect number.
that is sort of a small number, but what you also find is that they speak about various topics. And I mean, this is actually natural.
Yeah.
Because the Prophet ﷺ and with Aisha, as they lived together, they experienced many situations.
Yeah.
And so in certain situations when she had questions, she would ask those questions. And so these ahadith cover a various number of topics and areas and subject matters.
Yeah. Was there a distinct, I guess, feeling or attitude in a way that he would say, like, was he softer, for instance, in these hadith than any other hadith, in a way that his tone, for instance?
Well, it's a little bit difficult to really determine that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not actually hearing him say those words. We just have the written words. So it's really tough to decide, Aisha, was it in a soft tone or a louder tone?
But we know, for instance, there's a certain hadith, for instance, where he says, Ya Aish, and he doesn't say Ya Aisha fully. So we know for a fact that that's his, in a sense, that hadith, it's endearing and he's being soft with her.
But I believe that he used her name to express his connection and his love that he had with her.
Yeah.
That and the respect he had for her, that he would address her by her name. And addressing someone by their name is the most honorable way you can address someone, by the name that their parents gave to them, because that name allows them to now be identified among people, and it allows them to stand out among people.
Yeah. And it also personalizes the actual message itself. It's going personally to you when someone says that.
Exactly. All right.
To,
so when the Prophet ﷺ, called her by name, it actually meant that he was totally focused on her and with her. He was totally connected with her.
Yeah.
It sort of attracts attention, right? When you call somebody's name, they look at you, you look at them.
Yeah.
And so there is that direct contact, eye to eye, face to face contact.
Yeah.
It also implied that he was fully with her and fully attentive to her.
Sheikh Abdool Hamid, is going to be a very interesting topic. In the next episode, inshallah, what we want to talk about is we want to get right into the actual ahadith itself and talk about the first one that you have.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair.